I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Give me a $5,000 baby shower gift. We're besties, right? Kelly, my best friend who I hadn't heard from in 3 years, suddenly got in touch. I was absolutely flabbergasted by her words. What? You got married? Yeah, I did. As I asked in surprise, Kelly replied cheerfully. I was about to congratulate her when she said, actually, the reason you guys never had kids must be because Michelle lacks sex appeal, freezing. Simon, my ex-husband, and they had a child together. Michelle? You're coming, right? Kelly's triumphant voice reached me as I fell silent on the phone. There were so many things I wanted to say, like when did this happen, or you never even bothered to contact me before, but I knew responding would play right into Kelly's hands. So, I took a deep breath and calmly responded. Sure. I'll come with my husband, the lawyer. And so, John and I headed to her house. Little did anyone imagine that Kelly reaching out would lead to such upheaval in her and Simon's lives. My name is Michelle. I was born and raised in a rural area of Kansas. I spent my school years there before moving to New York for work. Living alone in an unfamiliar place from a young age, I remember feeling very lonely without any friends. After work, it became my routine to call friends and family back home. Even years later, I never really got used to the environment and had no acquaintances outside of work. Then, a turning point came when I visited a coworker's house and met a man who was a friend of her husband. His name was Simon. Born and raised in New York, he worked as a doctor at a university hospital. Simon, being the same age as me, seemed very sophisticated and attractive to someone from the countryside like me. Simon took a liking to me as well, and soon after we met, we started dating and got married in the year we both turned 30. The first person I reported my engagement to was Kelly, my best friend since elementary school. We had gone to the same schools through middle and high school, essentially best friends. Kelly was the only child of a local politician, a pampered princess. She inherited her father's leadership qualities and decisiveness, but also had a tendency to always think she was the best, for better or worse. I, on the other hand, was indecisive and lacked confidence. That's why I always admired Kelly, who was confident and always took the lead. Even after moving and not seeing each other as much, my feelings of her being a precious friend didn't change after moving to New York. That's why she was the first person I called to announce my news. Kelly? Guess what? I'm getting married. What? No way. To that guy, Simon, was it? I had, of course, talked to Kelly about Simon. Though they had never met, she knew his name and occupation. Yeah, that's right. Marrying a doctor, huh? You hit the jackpot. That's amazing. Kelly exclaimed excitedly upon hearing my news, which made me laugh unintentionally. I laughed because I misunderstood her excitement as being happy for my marriage. It's not like that. And besides, doctors don't make that much money yet, and he doesn't have much savings, so it's not really marrying into money. But that's okay. I'm not marrying for money. That's why I casually denied Kelly's words. However, my response seemed to have struck a nerve with Kelly. She went silent for a moment, then said coldly, "What? Is that some kind of brag? Pretending to be modest? Oh, it's pure love, money doesn't matter? What? Besides, you've been saying you wanted to come back here, but you never did. And now you're marrying someone from there. It's like you've looked down on us country folks all along." Her tone was not warm or joking. Rather, it felt like she was looking down on me, which made me rush to respond. That's not it at all. I really did want to come back, and I never thought I'd end up marrying someone here. But that's what happened. You got carried away thinking you're someone now that you're with a city guy. You'd have made a better impression if you were happy about marrying into money. That's not. Despite just announcing my marriage, Kelly seemed upset, and I didn't know what to do. Enjoy your fancy wedding then. I'll be looking forward to the invitation. With those words, Kelly hung up, leaving me speechless. Did I say something so wrong? I immediately tried calling back, but she didn't answer. Even my texts went unanswered. After getting in touch with Kelly, I intended to share my marriage news with other friends, but I completely lost the mood for it. However, I couldn't bring myself to not invite Kelly to the wedding. Our parents have been acquaintances for many years. And besides, it wouldn't make sense to invite all other childhood friends but leave out Kelly, my best friend. Despite reaching out to her multiple times after that phone call, I never got a reply. The wedding invitation was returned without any message, only a checkmark indicating her attendance, which was a simple gesture. Appalled by Kelly's immaturity, I planned to apologize at the wedding for my poor communication and decided it would be best to naturally distance myself from her moving forward. Then came the wedding day. Kelly showed up in an extravagant outfit, acting as if our previous conversation never happened, and cheerily approached me with her friends. "Look at you! Simon is quite the looker. I was imagining some unsociable geek since you said he was a doctor," she blurted out, leaving me dumbfounded. Simon, who was by my side, laughed upon hearing her. "Well, you must be Kelly, right? Thanks. Take good care of Michelle for me, and feel free to visit us in New York anytime," he said, surprising me yet again. Despite being aware of the situation between Kelly and me, including my plans to keep a distance, Simon inviting her to stay in touch made it impossible to maintain that distance. "Really? Thank you. I've been looking forward to meeting Simon, and I'm counting on you too," Kelly said, making herself overly familiar with a light touch. Kelly's behavior made me uncomfortable. But I couldn't say anything that might ruin the wedding day and managed to force a smile through the situation. Kelly's solo performance continued. She went from one of Simon's doctor colleagues to another, making her presence known. From the head table, I watched nervously as her actions could easily be misconstrued as being on the hunt for men, which was particularly embarrassing considering some guests were Simon's seniors and bosses. Having my friend act inappropriately towards my husband's colleagues was the last thing I wanted on our wedding day. I was drained by the end of it. But the thought of not seeing Kelly for a while brought me a bit of peace. However, my peace was short-lived. "Michelle! I'm here for a visit." Kelly started coming to our house once a month, insisting on staying for at least 2 nights each time. "Simon, you're so funny." It's fun for me too when Kelly visits. They would start their drinking sessions, leaving me to clean up afterwards since I don't handle alcohol well. Naturally, preparing snacks and drinks also became my responsibility since Kelly wouldn't bring anything. After a year of this routine, I expressed my feelings to Simon. "I'm thinking about asking Kelly not to come over anymore. It's a burden on you to always be entertaining, and honestly, preparing the guest room and shopping is hard on me." To which Simon responded, "It's rare for a friend to come visit from her hometown just to see you. Don't say things like that. I'm okay with it, so let's keep welcoming her." It seemed Simon had forgotten about my desire to distance ourselves from Kelly, making me feel like the villain. Despite several discussions about my concerns regarding Kelly with Simon, he never took my concerns seriously. I started feeling sick a few days before Kelly's monthly visits, and I began to dislike both her presence and myself for feeling this way. Our marriage, though generally happy, was strained by arguments over Kelly. One day, when Simon was out, Kelly was at our place. We ended up drinking together in the evening. "Non-alcoholic again? You're not pregnant, right? Just drink." "Yeah, but I'm not good with alcohol." "So, no pregnancy yet?" Kelly asked abruptly. Her nonchalant manner of broaching such a sensitive topic forced me to laugh it off. "Yeah. We're hoping. Maybe you're not attractive enough as a woman? You better hurry up before it's too late for a safe pregnancy," she said, laughing as if it was a joke. Annoyed by her rudeness and the implication that attractiveness had anything to do with it, I snapped back. "What about you? You're the same age and not even married, yet you're quick to judge others?" "Huh? What's that tone? You think you're better than me because you left the countryside? I didn't say that. Without anyone to stop us, our argument escalated. Kelly, as if ready to pounce, slammed the table. Don't get too cocky just because your husband is a doctor. If you had married someone with a higher income, like a congressman or a lawyer, like my dad, maybe then. But you used to mock Simon for his low income. That's not. It was then Simon returned home. At the worst possible time. He looked at me suspiciously, frowning. Is what Kelly just said true? You've been mocking me for my low income? Yes, that's right. She even said you couldn't save money. Kelly chimed in, and Simon turned his glare towards me, believing her words. It's a misunderstanding. Yes, when Kelly accused me of being after money, I did say your income wasn't that high yet, but it wasn't a complaint. I never meant it in a bad way. Even so, that would hurt Simon's pride, wouldn't it? Can't you understand that? Kelly interjected, obviously trying to side with Simon and pit him against me. I ignored Kelly. Clearing up the misunderstanding with Simon and repairing our relationship was more important to me. Simon was silent for a moment, then sighed. But honestly, we can't say our relationship has been going well. Like Kelly said, my pride is hurt. We need to talk about our relationship. That's not. Next to a smirking Kelly, I sincerely apologized to Simon. I told him I didn't fall for him because he was a doctor and that my feelings for him were genuine. However, Simon only said he was disillusioned with me. Eventually, we ended up divorcing. I tried to prevent it, but Simon's feelings wouldn't change. So, for his new beginning, I reluctantly accepted the divorce. 3 years had passed since our divorce was finalized. I had no contact with Simon or Kelly during that time. Some friends asked why I wasn't in touch with Kelly either, but after witnessing the crisis in my marriage and seeing Kelly side with Simon, I couldn't bring myself to contact her. Then one day, a call came from Kelly's number, which I had saved in my phone. Hesitantly, I answered. How have you been? I was taken aback by Kelly's unchanged demeanor after 3 years. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Give me a $5,000 baby shower gift. We're besties, right? She said, shocking me. What? You got married? Yeah, I did. Kelly replied cheerfully. As I was about to congratulate her, she said, actually, the reason you guys never had kids must be because Michelle lacks sex appeal, freezing me in my tracks. Huh? I, and even Simon, are happy to see Michelle after so long. That's when I realized. Kelly had somehow ended up marrying Simon and they had a child together. Michelle? You're coming, right? Kelly's triumphant voice reached me as I fell silent on the phone. There were so many things I wanted to say, like when did this happen, or you never even bothered to contact me before, but I knew responding would play right into Kelly's hands. So, I took a deep breath and calmly responded. Sure. I'll come with my husband, the lawyer. What? So you married Simon, meaning you're living here now? Oh. Yeah, we're living in New York. Great. Then give me your address. I'll come visit. I continued, taking Kelly by surprise with my response. After getting her address and avoiding further questions, I quietly ended the call. A month later, on the weekend, I decided to visit the address Kelly gave me. I hadn't asked when the baby was born, but if she contacted me right after the birth, the baby must still be a newborn. Considering it might be a difficult time, I waited about a month before visiting. On the way there, I spoke to my husband, John, who was driving. Sorry for the trouble, especially on your day off. John shook his head with a smile. No worries at all. Actually, I had remarried about a year ago. We met through a popular dating app. John might not be considered conventionally handsome, but he's a very kind person. We hit it off right away after meeting. After we started dating, I learned about John's job. I was surprised. Turns out, his job was as a lawyer. John had left the profession and income fields blank because he wanted to meet someone who saw him for who he was, not for his job. I did wonder why those fields were blank, but sometimes people leave them empty. So I didn't think much of it. Do you want me to put the address in the GPS? Do you know where it is? When we stopped at a red light, John, who was driving, asked. I took out the note to check the address and caught my breath. We don't need the GPS. I'll guide you. Oh. All right then. The car started moving slowly again. I looked at the address once more. Without a doubt, it was the address of the apartment where Simon and I used to live. No wonder I remembered it after hearing it just once. At that moment, I hadn't realized because my mind was full, but thinking about going back to that house made me a bit nervous. When we arrived at Kelly's house, John and I entered together. Nice to meet you. I'm Kelly, Michelle's best friend. Kelly greeted John with a smile at the entrance. Wait, you got remarried? I'm honestly shocked. Why didn't you tell me? I was holding back thinking it'd be wrong for me to be the only one happy. Kelly laughed. Holding back? Did she feel a bit guilty for marrying Simon and having a bit of happiness? If that was the case, I wish she had just told me. I asked with a wry smile. When did you get married, Kelly? I had no idea you two were a thing. About 1.5 years ago? We ran into each other by chance. Kelly said without making eye contact. Entering my old home after a long time felt strange. It seemed Simon wasn't home. Which I was honestly relieved about since I didn't want to meet him. Kelly was feeding the baby milk and asking John what he liked about me. I thought it was none of her business, but since John answered politely, I didn't join their conversation and instead glanced at a shelf. There were many photos of Kelly and Simon. Among them were photos I had taken when Kelly used to visit every month. There were also photos of them going out together and of a pregnant Kelly. Looking at them, I wondered how, if they had only reconnected 1.5 years ago, there were no gaps in the photos. There were photos that looked like they were taken in spring, in summer with short sleeves, in fall, and in winter looking cold. And the hair color changes. Considering the photos I took over 3 years ago, there seemed to be no 1.5 year gap. Could it be that they were dating even while I was married to Simon? Such doubts arose. And as if confirming those doubts, memories of their closeness and atmosphere came flooding back. Once I started thinking about it, I couldn't see it any other way. I slowly turned around. And I recognized the look Kelly gave John, filled with anger. Like an animal that had found its prey. Worried she might try to take John from me too, I confronted Kelly with a stern voice. Kelly, don't tell me you stole Simon from me? At my words, Kelly visibly shifted her gaze. Then, unexpectedly, she burst into laughter. You've been looking at those photos and came up with that story? Don't laugh, answer me. To think you didn't notice until now, you're really foolish. But, thanks to that, Michelle, you got to meet John, right? It turned out well, didn't it? Kelly admitted it casually. I was furious, but seeing the small baby in Kelly's arms, I couldn't bring myself to scold her and bit my lip instead. Besides, in the end, you preferred a lawyer over a doctor, right? That's why you divorced Simon so easily. Her words made me incredibly frustrated. I never chose Simon or John based on their professions. Meeting John was indeed a happy turn, but that's a different story. After divorcing Simon, I went through a really tough time, couldn't eat, and blamed myself for what went wrong. And to think, it was because Kelly was involved with him all along, they were mocking me together. I held back tears as Kelly laughed triumphantly. John, this girl, she loves chasing after rich men. You're young, you should find someone else. No, that's not true. I looked at John pleadingly. Then John murmured with a thoughtful expression. I see. I think I understand the situation now. I was shocked by his words. Thinking John was disgusted with me. In contrast, Kelly's lips curled up in a smirk. Reminiscent of the day she sided with Simon against me. But John stated clearly. So, Kelly, you've been involved with Michelle's ex-husband since they were still married? That's right. It's really dumb she didn't notice. Kelly laughed, and I snapped back. No way! Don't be stupid. This was why Kelly had contacted me. 3 years had passed. They thought what they had done to me had essentially been erased. John laughed. Kelly, you seem well informed. Of course I am. It's Michelle who's the fool here. She could file a civil lawsuit for the psychological damage. Please reflect on how you've hurt my wife. Michelle, let's go. Kelly turned pale at John's words. Beside a flustered Kelly, John gave me a reassuring smile. Relieved that John hadn't fallen for Kelly's manipulation and remained on my side until the end, I wiped away my tears. The kind and gentle John had been desperately thinking of how to heal my wounds and went through with the process of lawsuit. At the same time, my phone was incessantly ringing. Calls from Kelly and an unknown number. When I answered once, hearing Simon's voice, I immediately hung up. Thanks to that, we also got Simon's number, making the paperwork smooth. On another day, we visited their house again. These are the documents related to the process. We've brought them for your review. It was a Sunday, so Simon was home too. As soon as we arrived, both of them apologized. Michelle, I'm really sorry. Please withdraw the lawsuit. Kelly suddenly became docile, apologizing. I kept quiet for your sake. I thought, it's something we could take to our graves. Yeah, that's right. I only told you because you seemed happy. Simon, too, as if they had done nothing wrong, continued with their uninteresting excuses. So, you admit you're at fault? Of course. Then, pay the alimony. But they fell silent at those words. The apology was meaningless without action. John began to explain the alimony. Anyway, we'll be claiming $50,000 from Simon to Michelle, and $50,000 from Kelly to Michelle, making it a total of $100,000. $100,000? There's no way we can pay that. The amount John mentioned sent them into a frenzy. Without changing his expression, John calmly explained the reasoning behind the amount. Still, they kept complaining, that's too high. We have a child. If you had any decency, you wouldn't demand such an amount from a family that has to raise a child. If they had any decency, they wouldn't have interfered with a friend's marriage or pursued a friend's husband. Despite their self-righteous ranting, John, for the first time, raised his voice to silence them. That's how serious your actions were. All this talk of taking it to the grave, how foolish. You were just overcome by lust. Don't make excuses. With that, the two were effectively silenced. Next to him, I felt profoundly grateful to John. All right. Simon murmured quietly. Wait, Simon. Are you serious? Where are we supposed to get that kind of money? I'll figure out my part. You can borrow from your parents. What? There's no way I can do that. As they started to argue among themselves, it was clear that Simon had the income as a doctor. Kelly, on the other hand, had no income. Though she might have worked while living in her hometown, the cost of her frequent flights to visit us must have been substantial, and it was unclear when she had quit her job or if she was the type to save money. Especially since her father is a congressman. Even if they have the money, he's not the type to pay off his daughter's infidelity alimony. We'll be leaving now. Please contact us when you're ready. John prompted, and I also left the house. After closing the door, Simon's angry shouts of "Why did you tell Michelle?" could be heard. There was no sign of remorse. Hearing that, John and I laughed as we left. We walked to a nearby coin parking lot to get into our car when we heard, "Wait, please!" Simon's voice stopped us. "Get in the car first." I nodded and got into the car. The window was slightly open, allowing me to hear their conversation. I wanted to close it since I didn't want to hear anything, but sitting in the passenger seat, I couldn't start the engine, so I just sat quietly. Listen, you know my situation, right? Please, do something. Simon pleaded, making me look up. That's a different issue. Suggesting they knew each other, which I found odd. But it felt like I shouldn't be listening to such a private conversation. However, I couldn't help overhearing it. How much do I have left? Tell me. In a place like this. What if someone hears us? Just tell me. My life is on the line here. Simon pressed John urgently. John whispered something back. So, $40,000 to Amy and $22,000 left in installments to Mina. And now $60,000 to Michelle on top of that. There's no way I can pay. I was stunned by Simon's words. And to think you were Michelle's ex-husband. It's only a matter of time before Kelly finds out and demands alimony. Please, don't tell Kelly. Of course, I have a duty of confidentiality. But can you keep hiding it forever? Listening to John, Simon was distressed. Witnessing this, I couldn't help but laugh. It seemed Simon had been committing adultery repeatedly. Though they say fools and their money are soon parted, the way Simon has been throwing around his money has to be the height of folly. What a mess. You should learn from them. I know. Then, take care not to let Kelly find out. If you don't value her, you'll lose both your family and your money. John left those words behind and headed towards the car. Wait. Simon called, but John didn't stop. Simon, who made eye contact with me as I got into the car, froze as if petrified. Probably thinking his pride couldn't stand showing me such a pathetic sight. But it was already pitiful enough. The alimony to Michelle cannot be reduced by even a penny. Please take care. With those words, Simon finally slumped against a concrete wall, seemingly contemplating his next move. Hopefully, he'll use the brain he wasted on hiding his infidelity to somehow alleviate the damage he's caused to the victims. Sorry to keep you waiting. John got back into the car with a smile. I just greeted him with a smile in return. Thanks to John, I was able to receive the alimony from Simon and Kelly. Kelly had asked Simon to cover her portion of the alimony, but Simon had no means to do so. Eventually, she had to turn to her parents. Kelly's parents, of course, knew Simon was my ex-husband, but probably never imagined he was the cause of our divorce. They were furious when they found out the whole truth, especially since Kelly had lied about reuniting with Simon only a year and a half ago. Kelly's mom cried, saying it was her fault for spoiling her too much. Her dad said he wouldn't let her cross their doorstep again. It's clear that even with decent parents, a child might not turn out well. And they also found out about Simon's ongoing alimony hell. Though it's odd to condemn someone else's affair when you've had one yourself, I hope Kelly can understand a bit of how I felt. Simon chose to rebuild his marriage with Kelly, despite his infidelity and their child. With Kelly's pride and Simon's unchanging habits. I just hope their child grows up well, thinking of it as someone else's concern. After settling down, John and I went on a trip to a southern island with a view of the sea. A place that seemed to heal all the hardships and wounds of the past. I'm of an age where having children might not be possible. And while I regret missing my chance, meeting John has been a great happiness. I thanked John again. If I hadn't met you, I'm sure I'd still be alone, at the bottom of a pit of despair. Meeting John has brought me true happiness. Thank you for coming into my life. I wanted to be with you, Michelle, because you saw me for who I am, not what I am. Thank you for meeting me. Let's continue to look forward to our future together. John said this to me. I thought about how I want to cherish our current happiness and see as many different scenes with him as possible in the future.